Welcome to Empower Her Radio, the podcast for healthcare moms who want to break free from limiting beliefs, build unshakable confidence, and step into the truest expression of themselves, both personally and professionally. I'm your host, Corey Wynn. I'm a wife, a mom, a doctor of physical therapy, and a peak performance strategist. Working with highly motivated women to transform their lives and inspire those around them is what truly lights my soul on fire. Each episode, whether it's a solo session filled with actionable strategies or an inspiring interview with a woman who has overcome significant obstacles, is designed to leave you feeling worthy and confident in the value you have to offer everyone around you. I hope you walk away empowered and ready to take that next step to lead your life on purpose. Now, let's dive into today's show. Hey guys, I wanted to pop in real quick with a special offer today. Everything that I do here at Empower Her Radio and in my private coaching practice, Elevate and Empower, is to empower and equip women, specifically moms, with everything that they could possibly need to live their dream life. So I want to give you my dream life blueprint today that can help you get started with that. Just head to corywynn.com/dreamlifeblueprint and you can find that in the show notes. All right, now back to today's show. Well, I am so excited to have our guest today. We have been chit-chatting prior to the recording today about all the wonderful things about healthcare and moms who are highly successful balancing those things. So let me introduce LynAnn Weaver, a pioneer in the fusion of healthcare leadership, business growth, and high-performance coaching, is the founder of Healthcare Elevation Partners. As a certified high-performance coach through the High Performance Institute, LynAnn is dedicated to elevating the performance, success, and well-being of physicians, healthcare leaders, and organizations. Holding an MBA specializing in healthcare administration from the University of Colorado, Denver, LynAnn has led teams to national recognition in stroke care, accelerated volume growth of numerous individual physicians, practices, and service lines by 30 to 67%, and has been named a semifinalist for the Great American Speak Off, showcasing her prowess as a speaker and a leader. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We were just chit-chatting before the show about the potential for stress and burnout in healthcare. But I know when we spoke a few weeks ago, you really talked about focusing on helping the people who you work with all no longer be in that place.
Yes.
I feel like you said that you could kind of look at two different groups of people and see the successful and the not stressed and the not burned out and think, how do we move everybody into this category? So do you want to just dive in there?
Sure.
Tell me a little bit more about how you got where you are and go from there.
Yeah. So in one of my first director roles, I had only been in the job for a few weeks, and one of our best surgeons comes in my office really early one Monday morning and just sinks into the chair across from my desk, kind of puts his head down in his hands, and he looks at me and he goes, "I'm struggling. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my family. Like, my practice isn't growing enough. I'm really questioning why I'm even doing this. This isn't what I signed up for. I can't do this anymore."
Mm-hmm.
And he's a military vet. And so I'm sitting here going, not somebody who's lacking resilience,
Right.
not somebody who is, like coming to complain about something for no reason. And I went, oh my gosh, this is like watching brilliance turn to burnout.
Right.
And I felt completely unequipped to handle that situation. That's not something that they'd taught us in any of the leadership trainings that I'd gone through, which were very few at the time. And I was like, I have to do something.
We all just sort of get catapulted into leadership.
Yeah. You do really well in one job, executing and like in technical roles oftentimes. And then they're like, oh, here, go just lead people.
Uh-huh.
Great. How?
Right.
And that is an entirely other topic and podcast, but we could go into. But with that situation, it just really spurred this passion in me to say, how do I help my team not just not burn out, but how
Mhm.
do I help them be fulfilled and accelerate in their careers, create the life that they envisioned when they went into medicine or into healthcare in the
Mhm.
first place? And I kind of took a step back and I was starting to look at those two different groups of people that you referenced. And it was, I had my group of both leaders, staff members, and physicians who were doing really, really well and hitting most of their goals, but maybe not all of them.
Mhm.
And after a period of time, you would kind of see it was almost like this like slow decline. They would
Mhm.
start having more conflict at work. They didn't seem as happy. Their goals and like how quickly they were executing or at the level of proficiency that they were executing their goals started to slip. And it may not be that noticeable to a lot of people, but you could almost feel it if you're highly emotionally intelligent
Mhm.
and dialed into that. And then there was this other group who were facing the exact same situations, same stressors, same staffing shortages, same everything. Yet still came to work, were happy every day, actually seemed fulfilled,
Mhm.
and were hitting their goals. Like I had a couple docs who were in that category who blew their pro formas out of the water. Like they were operating at what we expected in a year within a few months.
Mhm.
And you just sit there and go, what is the difference? Like they
Mhm.
had same, some of them even came from the same training.
Mhm.
And as I started diving into this, it really came down to how people manage their energy levels
Mhm.
and how people were able to perceive and choose to perceive situations and manage their stress.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, there's a lot of other things that also go into it, but those were the primary pieces as I started asking more questions and really diving into the research. And I went, I need to figure out everything that I can about this, learn everything that I can about it so that I can support my team.
Right.
And after working through a couple different processes with several people, I've said, oh my gosh, I can make such a bigger impact coaching or doing trainings than what I could on my path to, an executive in a hospital for
Right.
what I was feeling called to do. And so that was really what drove the start of Healthcare Elevation Partners was to be able to bring in all of the tools and resources that truly help practices and healthcare leaders thrive from the coaching perspective, but also the performance improvement, sales tactics, everything that's going to get them the life that they're really wanting.
Right. Well, and you don't get to become top surgeons, top physicians, top therapists without being able to work hard. So I think
Right.
that you and I both work with the same type of client in that this is not somebody who's lazy. This is not somebody who lives in the world of victimhood. This is not somebody who isn't willing to go above and beyond. It's how you handle the constant grind and the grit and the societal views of like we'll just work harder.
Mhm.
We'll just work harder. And I would love to hear your kind of take on the people who you've worked with. What is like the common question or concern or challenge that they come to you kind of first? Like we have to figure this out first.
A lot of the ones that come to me, it's either I'm a brand new leader and I don't know, nobody's taught me how to lead, which
Right.
again to our prior point, is an excellent reason to pursue having a coach or a mentor or support of some kind,
Right.
going through structured programs. The other piece is I'm new to practice, like either just came out of training or I'm switching practices, don't necessarily know how to grow my practice because I've never needed to or have never been taught how. And then the third group is I am so beyond stressed out. I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my family, my job, be it more risk for liability. Something's going on in their life that's causing fear of loss of something significant.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones that I find haven't developed the tools or skills to be able to manage stress. And a
Mhm.
lot of it starts with what you were saying earlier of society has taught us in healthcare, you just have to work harder. And if you're not grinding, somehow that means that you're not successful. And if you're not
Right.
burned out, like somehow that means you're not working hard enough. And
Mhm.
it's this really backwards perception that's somehow gotten integrated into the system that I know both of us really want to be able to fix because it doesn't have to be like that.
Right. The patient or the client that comes to you and says, "Oh, I haven't slept but 3.5 hours, every night for the past week. I've gotten so much done." And you're going, "Stop. That's not okay." How many of your clients are able to reflect and recognize that they're in that survival mode space before it gets that far?
It depends. Um, there's when we look at human performance and human psychology, there's obviously so many things that go into that. But the story that I was sharing with you about the two moms that I worked with, who both were experiencing the same situation and handling it very differently. One of the differences with those, which just a preface, um, two highly successful individuals both work in healthcare, one mother of a 1 year old, one mother of a 5 year old. And the one mother was literally at a breaking point, coming from a place of everything's working against me, nobody's here to support me. Uh, the world is crashing and burning around her, like everything's on fire. And then the other one was, okay, there's some challenges. Let's see
Mhm.
how we get to fix this.
Right.
And switching into, okay, I get to look at this from a solution orientation versus a
Mhm.
problem orientation.
Mhm.
And your reference earlier about like not operating from that place of victimhood, that's, I would say, most people in healthcare, but there's definitely a lot that have adopted this viewpoint of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, and everything's aligning in my world to show me that I'm really not. And so then
Mhm.
I feel like a victim and I get to own that viewpoint, which gets me empathy or sympathy or some other benefit. And it perpetuates the cycle. And that's what I saw with the mother of the 1 year old that was, hadn't actually stepped into that recognition yet of I have some sort of agency over the outcomes that I'm experiencing in my life and the way that I'm interpreting things, the way that I'm experiencing it. And so
Mhm.
now it's just okay, let's put the plan together, help one, self awareness, like where
Right.
is some of this actually coming from? And
Mhm.
then what are the steps that we can put in place to help with that? Starting first and foremost with when you're in, a position where you're not sleeping very often, and then you add a
Right.
small child on top of it,
Right.
getting your energy under control is first and foremost of utmost importance, especially because fatigue impairs the brain so much and the body's ability to really manage stress. And it
Right.
starts that vicious cycle where exhaustion just leads to that heightened stress sensitivity. And
Mhm.
so it just turns into like this exacerbation of fatigue. And then it undermines our ability to manage stress, to interpret things appropriately, to have conversations, and to not take things personally. And then everything else just starts to spiral.
And then you have a
Whereas,
little person constantly interrupting, and then your train of thought is gone.
yep, you're already fatigued, memories challenged and stressed anyway. And so it's okay, let's start first and foremost from a productivity perspective. How do we
Mhm.
get your calendar and your meetings and your caseload and all of these other things into a manageable format so that you're
Mhm.
not getting double and triple booked
Right.
and you're feeling in control of your email and you're feeling in control of making sure that you have time blocked on your calendar to do the things that need to be done in the time frame that they need to be done, and then also giving yourself grace to
Right.
say some of this has to be done tomorrow or I need to delegate. And then
Right.
two, it's okay, fact of life, especially in healthcare, sometimes you're not going to be able to sleep. What do we do
Mhm.
on those days?
Right.
Can you do a 20-minute non-sleep deep rest protocol, which can, give you that same level of alertness and about 25 minutes is what you would have from 3 to 4 hours of deep sleep.
Mhm.
Or do we start to do energizing breath work, which hyperoxygenates the brain and actually helps with focus and helps with, activation of your sympathetic nervous system and feeling more energized so that for
Mhm.
the next 30 minutes to an hour, you're boosted up.
Right.
Or go every 50 minutes, do 10 air squats, do some
Mhm.
jumping jacks, get your
Uh-huh.
body in motion because I know you're not going to be able to take an hour break to go to the gym in the middle of the day.
Right.
If you
Right.
can, kudos to you. That's amazing. That's not what most people have time for. And so
Right.
it's finding these little things that we can insert into her schedule that actually help subtract the amount of time being spent on things that aren't necessary, or the time that's spent on, I was looking for that. What was I just doing? Or the rumination over conversations that went wrong, and then how
Right.
much that internal distraction really keeps us from doing the things that we need to do. And so it's this, it's a roadmap really of all of
Right.
the pieces that can be addressed, and then what do we subtract, and then what do we add in that doesn't add much more time but can make a really big impact, so that we can get to a level of recognition of, okay, the world's not out to get me. I'm
Right.
actually going
Right.
to be okay, and I'm just, my body and my brain are responding the way that I am biologically wired to. And if I learn to control my stress, then I can start to change all of these other things as well.
Well, and I mean, I love so much of so much of what you said, but what you said very first, I think is so important that we have agency over what's going on. And I think sometimes, and I'm sure both of us have had these clients that we just get in that space. And I know I have been there in the past before I started doing a lot of this work of just spinning and ruminating and not being able to complete anything that is going to move you forward and out of that. So the moment that we can all recognize, okay, hold on, how much of this have I potentially created by
Yes.
either not communicating my needs, not delegating things that could have been delegated, not asking for help. And I might not get this right, but I think this is from The Power of Receiving with Amanda Owen, but she talks about having a complaint fast and how that just complaining does nothing for your energy. It's just a waste of rumination and energy, but that talking about your feelings is fruitful and helps you move forward in a way of, I'm feeling overwhelmed in this moment. Could you help me by? And how
Yes.
many, at least in the generations above us, don't know how to ask for help, don't know how to receive help. So, what was modeled for us, I mean, we're kind of out here swimming in no life support because it wasn't modeled for us. We have to figure it out on our own.
Yeah. And asking for help is almost a sign of weakness, when in all
Right.
reality, it's the biggest sign of strength
Yes.
and security, and just like showing that you love yourself and appreciate yourself enough to ask for help. And who
Right.
doesn't want to provide help or support to somebody else, especially if they're willing to ask for it?
Well,
And
and so often, I mean, I think we all could identify with having a peer group, having a family group, or having a close friendship group that someone or multiple someones are always looking to help someone or something. And they just don't know where to give that assistance, or they're giving it over here. So the moment that we can recognize, hey, maybe so and so can help me with this today. Or I wonder if my neighbor can pick up the kids so that this can get done. Um, do you find that your clients are more willing to ask for help and are more willing to receive help, even kind of from the get-go of working with you?
it it definitely depends on where they're starting from. And
Mhm.
I have noticed a difference, I'll say frequently, but not, I mean, there is no like definite, this is always going to happen because we're people and people are different. But
Right.
to your point of like the older generations, were raised with certain viewpoints, certain socially acceptable norms, ways of behavior. Not asking for help is one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And so, depending on kind of where they fall or who they were trained by,
Right.
especially from the physician standpoint, I've noticed there are certain fellowship programs or residency programs that seem to have attendings who, bring this negative viewpoint or less, I'll say less effective viewpoint into what medicine really looks like or what healthcare really looks like. And
Mm-hmm.
so then it's okay, well, we have to go back and like start to question, is what I've subconsciously chosen to believe actually the way that it has to be?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there a more effective reason, belief, or meaning that I can give to whatever situation I'm experiencing?
Well, and it's so powerful for you to say that because I think so many of us grow up with a belief system and don't know that we can challenge it. I mean, on the one hand, I grew up with my father always saying, don't just believe something because somebody told you that, always figure it out for yourself. And yet, I will never forget my mentor looked at me lovingly, so lovingly, and she asked me one day, she said, how is that belief system serving you?
I love
I
that
just sat there
question.
and thought, well, it's not. But nobody had asked me that before. So that freedom of you with your clients to say, now hold on, that's a belief system you hold. There's no judgment here around that. But is it helping you? Is it serving you? Is it moving you forward? Or could there maybe be another way?
Yeah. Well, and I really love that question. And that's one of the most powerful things of having a coach or mentor or somebody who is a true confidant who cares about you enough to challenge you.
Mhm.
And how many people get into these circles of, oh, I want to help you, and so I'm going to affirm you over and over.
Right.
That can be counterproductive because if
Right.
nobody says, is that belief serving you? Or how
Mhm.
is that belief serving you? And help gain that self-awareness of, oh, okay, wait, if this is a belief, that means I chose it, whether knowingly or unknowingly.
Right. 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 Right.
Have adopted this belief set. Does it actually help me get where I want to be, or can I change it? And one of the things that I'm guessing you probably see this with people, with clients you work with as well, is somebody said something to me and I take it a certain way,
Mhm.
which makes me feel horrible about myself or feel like a victim or feel like they don't, respect or trust me. And it's, well, do you know 100% that that is exactly what they meant? What
Right.
is another meaning that you could give to that situation? And sometimes I'll make them come up with 5 or 6.
Mhm.
At that point, that's when you start to see the light bulb come on, where it's like, oh, okay, so I get to choose how I feel in this moment. And since I
Mhm.
don't really know, why don't I go ask for clarification? And then we
Right.
can agreement. And if that really is what they intended, how do we resolve this so that we both get what we're wanting?
Well, and how often do miscommunication and misunderstanding lead to significant hurt when if clarification was just asked, I can say things just very quickly to answer questions that can be perceived as very dismissive.
Mhm.
And it's not my intention at all. It's you asked a question, I answered. Moving on. So I've that's been part of my personal development is to really, really read the room and see if there's more to that question. Let me
Mhm.
hear if I'm understanding you. Is this what you're asking? Okay. And allowing yourself as a client to be held accountable, to be able to be vulnerable and allow someone like you as a high performance coach to lovingly kind of call you out is such a place for growth.
Oh, yeah.
And the success follows that. The, you know, improved productivity, the things that they've been looking for, follow those things. Um, but it takes that first to be able to be held accountable to yourself and to someone like you.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And first and foremost, our experience with others starts with the way that we view ourselves, the
Mm-hmm.
relationship that we have with self first.
Mm-hmm.
Because if, and I look back on when I first, like my first job, I had not done any personal growth work whatsoever. And I did not love myself. And it
Mm-hmm.
even have the slightest idea of how detrimental that was to every interaction that I had with other
Oh, yeah.
people, to the way that I would perceive things, to, you know, literally my performance at work, everything. I would second guess everything that I did because I didn't love myself enough or like give myself the grace to not be perfect. Struggling with
Mm-hmm.
perfectionism is something I know a lot of women especially
Oh,
struggle.
yeah.
Um, and that like my dealing with perfectionism or inability to deal with it rather at that
Mm-hmm.
point could have completely derailed my entire career had I not learned and had a mentor actually come to me at one point and say, why is it every time somebody says something to you, you automatically think that they're saying something negative?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to sit there and be like, that's a really good question. And he goes, do you think it could be because that's how you see yourself? And I took that step back and I went, yeah, it is.
And
But
thank goodness for that mentor,
I'd be a
right?
totally different trajectory if he hadn't challenged me in that way.
Mhm.
And I also could have not been receptive to it, which a lot of people get to that point too. And so it's how open and how much am I willing to look at potential for growth? And
Mhm.
how do I get growth to be willing to accept challenge?
Well, and I think, going back to the kind of three groups that you were talking about, I think allowing for this personal development and hiring a coach, becoming a mentor, all of those things, or being able to be mentored, it takes that first step of having seen yourself either grind and work hard or push forward and just continue to not hit the goals that you've been wanting for yourself or your family or your practice, and be willing to say, okay, well, what I'm doing is not working. I could at least try it differently. What have I got to lose at this point? And I do think, especially the third group you said of these physicians or healthcare providers who, want more time with their families, they want more time for themselves, but they also want to be highly successful practitioners. There is a balance. I feel like for so long people say, oh, I want a work life balance. And then they go, ha ha ha, that doesn't really exist. But it does if you create it, if you allow for it, and you make that your mission. And,
Absolutely.
and also recognize that that balance doesn't look the same for everybody. You were talking about perfectionism, and I know so many people who have stopped on their trajectory because it wasn't this perfect path. And who knows where they could have been.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and that's where like having something like your dream life blueprint is so powerful because it really is, it's without knowing what does work life balance mean?
Right.
What does success mean?
What does it
It
look like to me?
Yeah, it doesn't have to, it doesn't look the same to everybody,
Mhm.
but we're kind of programmed and trained to see success as a certain number or a certain dollar amount or a certain title. And you can have that and
Mhm.
family life, time
Mhm.
outside of work. And it may not be hour for hour,
Mhm.
but it's really about getting clarity on like, okay, what is it, one night a week that I get to go home for dinner by 5 o'clock, or is it two or three?
Mhm.
Or what does that, what how present am I with my family? How
Mm-hmm.
many epic memories are we creating?
Mm-hmm.
It's without that roadmap, it's like plugging into a GPS. Well, this is my starting location. I don't know where I'm going. So
Right.
just tell me where the heck you're going to end up. But if you put that point B in, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, turn right, turn left. Here's some feedback. You made a wrong turn around.
Yeah.
Great. But there's a place that I'm going and there's a plan to get there and path to get there. And that's where
It's funny. You mentioned that Dream Life Blueprint, and one of my colleagues helped me look at that and create it. And she's wonderful. She's a wonderful copywriter. Um, and I was telling her, she said, "Well, let me ask you these questions, and what would your answers be?" And so I was talking about dreams and whatnot. And she said, "That's so funny because that's nothing that I would have said." And to your point, helping your clients really gain clarity. And what was it? What's on your website? Oh gosh, the HEP? No, high performance. I just took it. I can't remember. Yeah, high performance indicator. And clarity was one of the scores. And the weight that gets lifted off of our clients' shoulders when they finally have clarity on what they want, not what they feel like they should want because of society or family or whatever, is mind blowing. They're like, "Oh, I don't really actually want that at all."
yep,
So how often do you find yourself in a space of that aha moment of, "Oh my gosh, I've been chasing something that really isn't that important to me."
a lot. I'm 95% of the time.
Yeah.
There are so few people that I've encountered, whether a client or coworker or, just somebody that I'm having a conversation with, who have spent any time at all sitting down and saying, this is actually what I want.
Hmm.
And that's where such a great example, like common knowledge isn't common practice.
Right.
We all know, oh yeah, create a plan. We do it for business, we do it for our practices, we do it for, the company that you're with, but we don't do it for our life. And then we wonder why life happens or it feels like life just happens to us.
Hmm.
When if we take that step back and create that clarity on what is it that I want, and then identify the steps to get there,
Hmm.
that's where you actually get to have the fulfillment that everybody wants that they don't know how to get or think that it's impossible to get.
What, thinking about the moms in healthcare, what is one of the first questions that you ask your clients to help them gain clarity on really what they're looking for?
It does kind of change depending on the conversation and how, I mean, I've got, the intake questionnaire to get a couple ideas from them.
Right.
Usually starts with what are your top three professional goals
Hmm.
and what are your top three personal goals?
Hmm.
And most people have no problem identifying what their professional goals are. You ask about the personal goals and it's almost like, "Ah, wait, I can have personal goals like outside of I want to get married or I want to have a family.
Hmm.
There can be more than that.
Uh-huh.
And then from there, it's diving into, okay, why is that important to you?
Hmm.
What changes in your life when you would have that?
Hmm.
Who else will that impact?
Right.
And
I
then
so often, yeah, right. And I so often ask my moms, "What do you want?" And even more global than, what are your top three personal goals? And it's crickets. Or it's
Mhm.
immediately like, "Well, my husband needs this, or my spouse needs this, and my children need that." And I said, "No, but what do you want?" And they have no idea. Just like you said, you know, and really sitting, and so often it becomes a very emotional, vulnerable place to allow them the space to step back and think, when was the last time I did something for me? When
Mhm.
when did I ask myself? And oftentimes it's, before they got married, before they had kids 10, 15 years ago. So
Yeah.
how many years have your clients been allowing life to happen to them without that navigational beacon?
And that to me is one of the most heartbreaking things. And I was there.
Me too.
I thought everything just happened to me. I didn't understand that it could actually happen for me when I put a plan in place and got clarity and started to, develop self-awareness habits and manage my energy. That there were ways that I could manage my energy outside of sleep and coffee.
Right.
I
Right.
freaking do. And also, I mean, even with the question of like, what is it that you want? I recognized early on too, the way that I would answer that question was what I thought other people wanted of me or from me or for me to do. And that wasn't something that I was directly taught,
Mm-hmm.
but after doing this work for the last, decade or more, even my mom, who is angel on earth, sweetest person in the world, love her to death, like my best friend. I asked her actually over Thanksgiving. I said, "Well, where would you want to live? Like, where would you want to go on vacation?" And even that simple of a question, it was, "Well, wherever you want to, or wherever your dad wants to go, or I know your dad would like this." I asked her literally 7 times. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care what so and so wants. I'm asking what you want. And she kind of looked at me deer in the headlights and was like, I'm good with whatever. So not what you're good with, not what is okay, not what you can tolerate, not what you can do. What do you want?
Right. You don't have to just be content with what you have.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question.
What would be one of your top energy management, not solutions, but strategies for moms? And I want to be respectful of your time. So if you need to go soon, just let me know. But I have some time to go a little bit over if you do.
Um, Top energy management. I think especially for those sleepless nights that you're not getting um, the number of hours or the quality of rest. First and foremost, from a sleep hygiene perspective, we always hear, no screens before bed, don't eat right before bed, all of those pieces. But something nobody ever told me was how important it is to actually breathe through your nose and how disruptive that can be to your sleep. And so if you have chronic inflammation or if you have some sinus issues that are preventing you from breathing through your nose, especially while you're sleeping, getting that resolved.
Okay.
Secondly, for the days that you're not getting as much sleep, doing energizing breath work, which is Wim Hof style breathing or breath of fire, or there's a ton of different breath work routines. There's actually
Mm-hmm.
a breath work app called I think it's actually just Breathe. Um,
Okay.
but there's so many that you can just find on YouTube. But one of my favorite is just literally like 20 deep, forceful inhales through your nose, exhales through your mouth. And then as you're doing that style of breath work, you're actually clapping and you're smiling because by smiling, we actually create the neurochemistry of joy, which activates our prefrontal cortex and other regions of
Uh-huh.
to help with focus. And it's amazing. If you want to do it really quick, we can do it. It's kind of silly, and that's totally the intention, but
Of
it can
course.
be as much energy as a cup of coffee. So, okay. I'm going to move the microphone back just a smidge here. So 20, go ahead and do it with me. So 20 deep inhales through the nose, exhales through the mouth, and then we're going to clap. And then at the end, we're going to stick our arms in the air and say, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready.
All right.
Okay. Ready? And I'm ready. I'm
Hey,
ready.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm glad you were counting because I was like, wait, what am I supposed to be doing?
I have lost count as well. So if anybody watching this is counting, 20-ish, it works. It's really about hyperoxygenating the brain, getting your
Hmm.
body in motion. The smile boosts neurochemistry, focusing on
Yeah.
joy. It feels silly, so it kind of puts you in
Yeah.
that state anyway. And then the arms up in the air is more of that power pose. And so you're feeling more confident and energized and boosted and almost
I
kind of
love
like
that.
ready to take on battle,
Yeah.
which puts you into a totally different state. Even just from that, like I feel even more.
I was gonna say, let's go. Let's go do something.
Yes. Quick little tip, and you can do it anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I would love for the show notes if you want to send me the different types of breathing, the exercise that you just did. And if you do know the app, I'd love to just put that in as well. But I want to make sure that our listeners know how to get in touch with you if they want to coordinate a consultation or just be able to follow you in your work. How can they do that?
Best place is the website, which is healthcareelevation.com. We're
Okay.
on LinkedIn primarily, as well as Instagram, and just starting a YouTube channel.
Oh, nice. Nice. Well, I'll be
Um,
sure to have all of that on the show notes. Is there anything that we haven't covered or you just thought of that you want to add before we
I
finish?
would love to offer any of your listeners the high performance indicator assessment that you took in reference.
Yeah.
Great tool just to be able to figure out like where are the areas that if I put focus on for the next 90 days are really going to move the needle on getting me the life that I'm wanting.
Yeah.
Um, you can find it at healthcareelevation.com/HPI.
Okay.
And normally it's a value of $97. We'll give it for your guests for free and
Awesome.
make got a link to that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.
Likewise, I really appreciate the time. This is a really fun conversation, and hopefully it was beneficial for your guests or for
Oh,
your listeners.
oh no, I absolutely know that it was. Thank you for tuning in to today's show. If this episode resonated with you, I would truly appreciate a 5-star review. Your feedback is so important to me. Additionally, if today's topics have sparked a desire for more in your life and you're unsure about the next step, I have a special offer for you. I'm offering a free call to explore how my high level coaching and strategizing can help you gain clarity on your goals, prioritize what is most important to you, and refocus on yourself in the process. Simply head over to coreyWynn.com/free call. That's www.coreyWynn.com/free call. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.